So let's talk about the battle for your mind. You know that feeling, right? Like there's this constant tug of war happening inside your own head. Well, Carmelite spirituality has a name for that. It's this idea of a constant internal struggle, a battle for what's actually true.
Which brings us to a really interesting question. Are you fighting a battle you don't even see? I mean, think about that for a second. This whole spiritual tradition we're diving into today basically says that most of us are caught up in this invisible conflict over what's real and what's not. It's a huge idea, so let's unpack it.
All right, so here's our game plan. First up, we're going to define what this battle for your mind really is. Then we'll look at a classic example with Pilate's big question, what is truth? After that, we'll get practical with the Carmelite toolkit, and we'll wrap up by talking about how to actually put all this into practice in your own life. Simple as that. Okay, let's jump right into section 1, the battle for your mind. So what are we really talking about here? At its core, it's a struggle against all those worldly philosophies, all the messages that are just constantly bombarding us, telling us what we should think about success or happiness or what gives life meaning. So you might be wondering, what exactly is Carmelite spirituality? Well, think of it less as a strict set of rules and more as a path of truth. And the center of that path is a deep, loving relationship with Jesus. And a key idea here is that he's not just some guy who teaches the truth. He is the way, the truth, and the life. And this is absolutely crucial. This isn't a passive, sit back and let it happen kind of journey. No way. This path requires you to actively fight that battle for our mind. It's a conscious struggle against all the noise, all the other ideas out there trying to pull you in a million different directions. Okay, so if we're talking about a battle, what does the conflict zone even look like? Well, there's this perfect historical example that just lays it all out for us. It's the showdown between Jesus and Pontius Pilate, and it all boils down to one single question about truth. So picture this. Jesus is standing there, and he says he's come to bear witness to the truth. And Pilate just comes back with, what is truth? But you can almost hear the eye roll, right? It's not a genuine question. It's totally cynical. It's a complete dismissal, showing a mindset where truth just doesn't matter, not when power and personal convenience are in the mix. And right there, you have the two mindsets on truth laid out side by side. On the one hand, you've got the Pilate mindset. For him, truth is whatever works for you. It's relative, it's subjective. I mean, he chose convenience over justice, plain and simple. But then you have the Jesus mindset, which says, no, truth is objective. It's real. It's something you bear witness to. In fact, Jesus is the truth. And look, this isn't just some dusty old story from 2,000 years ago. This exact same conflict is alive and well today. It's what Pope Benedict XVI called the dictatorship of relativism. You've probably seen it. It's this idea that there's no such thing as objective truth, and that my feelings, my desires, well, they're the only things that really matter. And that's why this has to be a conscious effort. St. Paul totally nailed it in Romans when he said, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind. It's the perfect summary of the battle, right? You have to choose not to just go with the flow, but to actively transform how you think. All right, so that's the problem. It's a big one. So, what's the solution? How do we fight back? Well, that brings us to section 3, the Carmelite Toolkit. We're talking about 3 really practical tools for renewing your mind and actually winning this fight for truth. And you know what? This toolkit is actually pretty straightforward. It boils down to 3 things: scripture, church teaching, and what we consume. And that last one, that's a huge one for us today, right? Being intentional about what we're letting into our minds. So let's look at the first tool, scripture. In practice, this means seeing the Bible as more than just an old book. From this perspective, it's God's living word, something that can actually speak to you, right here, right now. The whole idea is that by reading it and meditating on it every day, you're basically filling your mind with God's truth, little by little. And St. Jerome had this great line that just sums it all up. Ignorance of Scripture is ignorance of Christ. It makes perfect sense, right? If Jesus is the truth and the Scriptures are our main source for knowing him, then not knowing the Scriptures means, well, you get the point. It just shows how absolutely foundational this is. Okay, tool number 2 is church teaching. The thinking here is that the truth Jesus brought wasn't meant to be some kind of secret code. It was something he gave to the apostles to protect and pass down.
So for Catholics, all of that collected wisdom is available in things like the Catechism of the Catholic Church, which is basically the cliff notes of what the church believes. All right, and this brings us to the third tool, and man, is this one relevant for today. What we consume. It's all about realizing that everything we let in, the shows we watch, the podcasts we listen to, the stuff we read, it's not neutral. It's all actively shaping what we think and what we want. You could say the battle for the mind is really fought on the battlefield of our attention. So, how do we decide what to consume? What's the filter? Well, there's a great piece of advice in Philippians. It says to fill your mind with whatever is true, honorable, just, pure, lovely, and gracious. It's a pretty solid checklist, isn't it? A call to be intentional about filling our minds with good stuff. Okay, all of this theory is great, but it brings us to our final and honestly most important section, putting truth into practice. I mean, how do we take all this and actually do something with it? What's your first move? And the good news is, the approach is really simple. It's just 3 steps. Reflect, plan, and start small. That's it. Reflect, plan, start small. So, step 1, reflect. This is about just finding some quiet time to be really honest with yourself. In this context, it's about prayer. Just asking the question, hey, where have these worldly ideas about success or love or whatever, where have they crept into my thinking without me even realizing it? Then, step 2 is to plan. This is where the rubber meets the road. You've got to get specific. Okay, what media do I need to limit? What am I going to replace that time with? Am I going to add some more scripture, maybe pick up a Catholic book, find a better podcast? Make an actual plan. And finally, step 3, and this one is so important. Start small. Seriously, don't try to change everything all at once. You'll just burn out. The name of the game is consistency. So just pick one thing, maybe 2, something small and achievable, and just focus on building that habit. And that really brings us to the heart of it. This battle for your mind, it's real, for sure. But it's not about some huge, overwhelming war. It's one in the small, intentional choices we make every single day. So I'll just leave you with this one question to think about. What is one small step you can take, starting this week, to renew your mind?